following show contains adult content. It's not our intent to offend anyone, but we want to inform you that if you are a child under the age of 18 or get offended easily, this next show may not be for you. The content, opinions, and subject matter of these shows are solely the choice of your show hosts and their guests, and not those of the Entertainment Network or any affiliated stations. Any comments or inquiries should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening.
To the adventure on Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
Yo, here I am, and normally we have Pipeman the Wandering Jew on Tuesday, but we decided to put it on Wednesday because we have a very special experience that's going to happen today. I do want to say that it was tripping me out during the intro because that was my grandson who was like, I don't know, at the time, maybe 4, doing my intro. And he's now 15, and we were doing media coverage together at Welcome to Rockville a couple weeks ago right here in Florida. And we will talk about, towards the end of the show, some ticket giveaways to upcoming festivals on the Pipeman Radio Tour. And we're going to talk about some shows I just covered here locally. And I'm leaving tomorrow for the next leg of the Pipeman Radio Tour. So we'll talk about that too. But that's later. Right now, I want to introduce somebody I've known for a very long time. Used to also do a show on this station many moons ago. And you're in for a treat, or maybe not today, because it might be too many adventures and too many experiences for you, because here on the Adventures at Pipeman on W4CY Radio, we're going to have, and this will be Juan's cue, the Rabbi Jenny Experience. So I don't know. It might be too many adventures and experiences for people. I don't know.
I don't know. That was the pitched name. I think it might have even been you, Dean. I don't know that pitched that name. The show never really happened, but that was what it just the Gmail stuck. The Rabbi Jenny Experience. So
yeah, see, there you go.
Yeah,
it's just like the Grateful Dead experience, the Led Zeppelin experience. Everybody has experiences. Is my point. Like, and boy, are we having a lot of experiences in the world today, especially as a Jew. Okay. And you are somebody that I have on the show because, the purpose of this podcast, of all of my wacky ones, this is one of the serious ones, but the purpose is that we need to stop letting people pull the oldest trick in the book and divide and conquer and create narratives. And we were just talking before the show, like, listen, so many times people obsess over the news, the media, their devices, over things that do not affect their life in any way, shape, or form. They just get riled up with a bunch of, I don't know, hate, attacking, division. That's all this does. And we're giving all the powers that be, that we don't want powers that be, the power by doing that. And I'd rather, and that's the mission of this show, is to squash anti-Semitism and squash all hate. I don't care what group it is, okay? There should be no hate. We're all one race, the human race, and it should all be about love and unity. And that's why we're having the Rabbi Jenny Experience, because that's what she's going to bring.
Pressure.
No pressure at all.
No pressure. Yes, it was a unique request to be on the show. I'm here up in Joliet, which is south of Chicago, about 30 minutes.
How close are you to the prison?
We're pretty close. I mean, there's a few prisons here, which, but the old one from the Blues Brothers movie is, they're both about 10 minutes away. It's tiny, it's small. Yeah.
I go to prison every year, by the way. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, I'll be going in July. I go to
Oh.
Shawshank Prison every year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
so,
I
like,
mean, not, I mean, nice. Like what? Yeah.
no, it is. I do media coverage at a music festival called Incarceration,
That's
and
great.
it's at the actual Shawshank Prison.
Well,
So
they have a blues festival here at the old Stateville. I believe it's Jim Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. They started it, and there's been a huge revival of Joliet. Like Bill Murray bought the minor league baseball team here, and we just finished downtown the Rialto. I mean, it's a great. I don't know how I got here. I'll be honest, but I'm here, and it's interesting. It's an interesting. The Midwest is an interesting place to be with the way the world is, and
that's a very nice thing to say.
it's very behind in when we talk about some of these issues. It's when you've lived in Miami and when you've lived in like a true melting pot, and worked in downtown Miami and worked in South Florida, you coming to the Midwest where everybody's still extremely separate and just now confronting the issues of coming together. It's really a different vibe. And then of course, I came here and jumped on the pulpit after years of not doing pulpit work, just doing outreach work and social services. So I was very shocked at the smallness of religion, after having been such a free spirit for so long, the
Right.
wandering. I am truly like, it's a great title for the show because I really am the perfect example of a wandering Jew.
That was my nickname by my family before I ever got married because I always moved where I vacation.
Yeah,
So my family would call me the Wandering Jew.
yeah, I can't be held back either. I mean, I think we share that. I love the world um and I also moved from a very Jewish place outside of Boston as a young girl. I moved in 6th grade to Fort Myers, Florida,
Mm,
which at the time, I believe it was 1980, and it was still very segregated. And the Jews there weren't allowed to join clubs at school. I wasn't allowed to I was amongst the first. There was 5 of us that were the first Jewish kids to be allowed to cotillion. We're
wow.
talking about like really they on the bus they checked for my horns. I come from Boston where it was just saturated
That's
basically,
so
and
funny you just said
yeah.
that because I was
Mm,
just having a conversation. And it's funny, it was in my head to talk about it like just a few minutes ago.
mm,
My brother's mother, who's 90 years old, we were talking about something, and I brought up the thing about we were talking about different places where people live. Sometimes they're so isolated in that bubble, they really don't understand where other people's thought processes come from. And that's where I even understand people that are different than me because maybe they have different influences that, it doesn't mean it right or wrong. It's just where you are is what you're accustomed to. And we were just talking about the devil horn. She had said to me, 90 years of living, she only heard about that recently where somebody said something to her. And I said, man, I've gotten that most of my life.
mhm.
It's, you know,
Well,
the,
and it's interesting because you hear all the part of the news story to ignore today is that it's gotten worse. That's part
mhm,
of the, making, my people afraid. I feel like that's all that's doing is fostering fear because I experienced such grotesque in the South, anti-Semitism. The evangelical creed. Again, I'm not trying to offend anyone, but the creed is, like I remember being, "You killed Jesus." I remember kids throwing money at me. I mean, this is like 1981, and
right.
I was like, I was never taught that as a child. Like I was, first of all, it's not true, but I was always taught to revere. Growing up in Boston, my parents were very open, and my mother, I always talk about this as my earliest memory. I was must have been like 3, and I'm standing at the dishwasher. Those old dishwasher. I can tell because remember they used to steam a lot when you would stand next to them. And my mother would hang stockings on the dishwasher because the town was half Catholic, half Jewish that I lived in, and we all kind of hung out with each other. Like it was very, very different. And But I remember my mother saying, she would say, she goes, Jesus was just like Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy. He was a great man. Like, this is a very, it was just like nothing. And my dad used to say, hey, kid, maybe it's the next big thing. And he was raised Orthodox. Like, nobody had that kind of a tension that it was exposed to when I came to the evangelical, like deep South. And I did not receive the anti-Semitism from, my Black friends. It was in the South. It was mostly, the super church model, I would
Well,
say.
it's funny you should
Baptist,
say
yeah.
that. It's funny you should say that because so I was moving back from California to New Jersey to go to Rutgers, and I brought my Black friend with me, who's one of my best friends, and we're driving across the country, and we're in Texas, which is also the deep South in that attitude. And so we're at one place, we're in El Paso, and a payphone. I know some people listening don't know what that is, but
I
it
miss
was
payphones.
it was a thing. I miss the ones in New Jersey. We used to have the drive up payphones. Like, it was great
Oh,
during the winter. Like, I had business appointments, and you would pull off the Garden State Parkway, and there would be these phones lined up that you just drove up to. You took the phone, you put up the window during the winter so you didn't freeze, and there you go. It was the closest you got to a mobile phone, I
right,
think.
right, right. I
Uh,
feel like it was like intentional communication. I mean, nobody could reach me. I
right.
really, I missed that piece. That,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And so basically, I'm looking at some people coming towards us in the parking lot, and I go to my friend, he was the one on the phone, like, we need to leave. And he didn't know what was going on. He's like, why? I'm like, I'll tell you in a minute. We need to leave now. And basically, it was some deep South white, mm,
Mm-hmm.
and they were coming over because he was Black. Okay. But then on another part of Texas where there isn't a white person for 100 miles, we went to his grandfather's like farm, and like all the one of those places in the deep South that they're just all out there hanging out, one big family. I felt less I felt more safe there,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt more like part of
Mm-hmm.
them. It was like
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
I had no issues whatsoever. I had one of the best times I ever had in my life.
I had very similar experiences all the way through college. Like, I did African American studies at the University of Central Florida, and I found freedom in the writings of Zora Neale Hurston, and I've had a great grief coming to the Midwest, where those relationships aren't. This is a different feeling in Chicagoland. We're living in Farrakhan world here. We're living in Malcolm X world, and that's MLK and Rabbi Heschel were kicked out of Chicago. So I
Mm.
mean, I'm living in there's just two very different worlds, and it was a big grief. And my husband's, he's Puerto Rican and he's from Brooklyn, and so we both have felt a sense of cultural grief coming to Chicago, in that we've never felt more who we are. Like, I don't I never in Miami. I mean, I worked in the courthouse in South Florida, Dade County Courthouse. My staff at the law library, we were getting all the judges on the computers. Can you imagine, in the 90s? But it was my staff. There was Miss Colette was Haitian, Lee was Irish, Miss Barbara was Jamaican, and Miss Maria was Cuban. I mean, we were just. It was like it's very, but we never thought about it.
Yeah.
It was just. It was so. I have such grief over that separation, and I'm very passionate about it, that that I'm not going to let people tell me that didn't exist. Like,
Yeah.
we did make progress, and I'm not gonna, you know what I mean. I think that there's a lot of pulling people apart in order to keep things a certain way, but there was so much, especially in the South Florida. I felt very lucky to have lived there when I did. We used to do these huge interfaith events. I mean, I chanted Yom Kippur at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church for
Nice.
the children, Haitian children, every year for 7 years. And I had a Sufi Baba, I had a Islamic leader, I had everybody would come for Kol Nidre and in a church, and I would chant Kol Nidre with my Torah, and they would be there, and we'd fill the church and raise money for kids. But it's just as soon as, I would say 2016 is when I really noticed the shift. But coming here, it's just not the same.
God, in my
It's very
opinion,
weird.
God doesn't divide, man divides.
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was never raised that way. Like, and so I I think that the real crime and what I saw on the pulpit when I was there for 5 years is that I kept trying to distill the fear in my congregants, like, "It's not worse. You've just been lucky. You haven't seen and lived where I've lived." They're trying to tell you it's worse so they can negate the fact that it was always lying underneath.
Well, this stuff has been going on for Jews since the
Right,
beginning
right,
of time. Okay,
right.
like history does repeat itself, and there's a lot of things we're seeing nowadays that happened in the last century during the exact same decades. And it's just we don't learn anyway.
But here's the thing, like, I love the title of your show because I believe that if people would stop for just one moment and realize that the Jewish people were removed from their land 6,000 years ago as an indigenous people, removed and genocided and compared to animals, and every single United Nations, we meet every single number on the checklist for indigenous people, by the way. So, but this happened 6,000 years ago. So we're in a state of maturity where when these things happen over and over again to us, we don't stop living.
Right.
The inner strength is something that I think we could help each other. Like, there are indigenous people on this continent. There are people who can't get beyond the trauma, that if somehow they could understand that, like, there's something in the essence of being raised Jewish, that no matter what happens to you, believe me, you're going to get up and you're going to live your life, and you're going to do your best to make life better for everyone around you. Whether you go to synagogue or not, you're raised like that. If you're raised
Yeah.
in a house like
To-
mine, that's your job.
totally. And
you know?
I
Yeah.
gotta say too, in that, that first of all, I have this belief that everybody should be required to travel and see other cultures and other countries. It's pretty
100%.
normal in Europe. It's almost like a requirement there. And I think because people live in this bubble and they don't realize till they get out there in the world. I was thinking about when you're talking about, being in the church and doing Kol Nidre. I was thinking about when I was in Bali a couple of years ago and went into this cave that was
Mm,
uh, for Hindus and Buddhists, and it
mm.
was a Hindu and Buddhist temple all in one. I'm like, now how cool is that? That here you are, two different philosophies that can coexist not only on Earth but within the same cave.
It's so awesome. Like, when I was in Peru, I do like trauma work, shamanic work, thehealingrabbi.com if you want to do trauma work with me. But being up with the medicine people, the Paco people in Peru, and I had my tali the whole time on, and I had, you always feel like you're being a bad Jew if you do all these things. There's always a little bit of that guilt. But it was so great being with the Pacos, and we talked about the similarities. We talked about, like, the four worlds in their culture. We looked for the similarities, not the differences. And we were,
Exactly.
these are truths that came down on all the mountains at the same time, just not in the same place. So it's like reflecting a truth that you can only speak to people through their environment. We're sensory beings. So what you talk to somebody on the island of Hawaii, you're not going to, with all that gorgeous, it's not going to come down the same way as it would in Northern Europe, and
Yep.
so it's just very cool to me to continue to be somebody like yourself who, people will always want to put you in a box. They're always want
Yep.
to figure you out. And the goal is there's no box. There's no box. And
and and the
yeah.
division is
Hmm.
man-made,
Yes.
okay? And like you said, we all like we all kind of pretty much believe the same thing,
Mhm.
just different stories, different, times, different geographics, different, you know, perceptions. But at the end of the day, who cares what somebody believes as long as it makes them a better person and makes them feel good? That's
And
the
it
way I look at it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that we're all I can't remember who was talking about it, but I mean, I think probably George Carlin, I don't know. We're all on this rock together. And
Yeah.
this obsession. Did you ever see the I'm obsessed with this movie from the 1980s called They Live by John Carpenter. Did you ever watch that horror
I'm
movie?
pretty sure I saw it. Yeah.
Okay, do you remember with the sunglasses and, like, in the church, and the
Vaguely,
sunglasses said,
vaguely.
consume or conform"? Like, I think we have to be less concerned with who somebody's praying to than we do with the fact that we are consuming the reason, like, at such a rapid rate and such an unconscious rate. Like, there's bigger stuff going on. And I think that when you look at the Hindu faith and you look at the Buddhist faith and you look at the Jewish faith, there is an essential focus on life, or Wiccan or pagan, on life, living life. When you look at some of the other major religions that have evolved, they've become very afterlife focused, and they become very death, like what's going to happen after. And that's just a manipulation of industrialization. Like, how can you keep people punching a clock? You can promise them something at the end of the rainbow, where unfortunately Jews, we're like, yeah, there's nothing at the end of the rainbow. I better go find a rainbow. But
I love the irony that we have devil horns and we don't even believe that there's a such thing as a fictional character
right.
called the devil.
Well, here's the thing. The real thing about those horns is when you look at the United Nations standards about indigenous people, and they weren't devil's horns. That's an interpretation. It was an animal. They
Mm,
literally were trying to make the Jew a non-human,
mm,
an animal. Like, and that was the same thing when you talk about the savages, when they came over and murdered hundreds of millions of people. And I always say to other people, I say, when you go to national parks, does anybody ever ask themselves who used to live here? Like, that's me. I'm like, well, where is everybody? But there's just kind of this, it's deeper than that. It's not, there's so, it's so it's so strange,
I'll tell you what I love most about being Jewish,
mhm,
because I'm a born Jew and a chosen Jew. And it even relates to how you are. It's like being a Jew, we don't believe Torah, we study Torah. I think that's a big fundamental difference.
mhm,
We're not just blind faith, we're actually commanded to question the Torah and question God and everything else, because that's how you learn from questions.
mhm,
And it's okay if we have certain things that we mix in. Like, I'm very much about Buddhist philosophies. It's a very
mhm,
positive thing. And being a Jew, that's okay. If I
mhm.
were another religion I may not name right now, it would be like, oh, you're not going to go to heaven believing that. And it's like just so ridiculous. Like, I think we should be
Scary.
able to take a funnel and put everything we learn from everywhere that's positive and put it in that funnel and make it our belief system, not just one thing from that funnel.
It's not only it's scary is what it is. And when you take the mind of a child and you tell them
Mm,
that they're going to burn, like, it's terrifying. I've always said to a lot of my friends, in their spiritual journey, recovering from religion, right? I always say, like, the greatest thing is, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, when you
yeah,
talk about it, like, I wasn't just raised like that. I mean, yeah,
exactly.
I wasn't raised also with a little bit of comfort, which would have been nice. But, I wasn't raised, I had to find that, for myself. But I wasn't raised with that fear
Well,
that
that's the
there's
point.
something, the original sin
I don't
concept.
think
Yeah.
God is a vengeful God that you should fear. Like that, to me, that's
Yeah.
the most ridiculous concept. It should be all love and light. That's my viewpoint.
Well, and the Torah is, I always say the Torah is, of course, a she, because she is a she, and those letters are tattooed on her body, all over it. And the Torah has been interpreted. The Hebrew, the code has been interpreted in a very unusual way by, male people in a long, long time ago,
And the
and
game of
in a different
telephone.
world.
The
Right.
game,
But
yeah,
yeah,
it's like,
but it's sort of like, it's, when you look at like just the simple creation story, and then man's created, and then the truth is that man was created as this, like, a steward to take care of and take care of the world. Like, that's the rabbinical, many of them, but if you read some of it, it's like, no, this was created for us. And so that takes us from the web of life. It takes us out. It makes us somehow like in dominion or in rulership of it, when the truth is we're a part of it.
yeah.
And people are desperate, Dean, to remember that. They're not in their bodies today. They're just really, that because you go in the ocean all the time, and the
Mhm.
Gulf, because you have to ground, because there's so much information just coming at us all the time, that if you don't ground, you don't. And their kids today, they don't even know what it feels like. What's your gut? And I'll tell you what's the scariest thing is now this medication that's turning off people's guts. I don't care what people, you want to make yourself look like that. That's great. Okay. But it's turning off your gut, the
Hmm.
most neurons in your body. It's turning it off. And I'm like, who, there's something to that.
Yeah,
I'm getting a little soapboxy, but
I
it's just
like
like,
it.
it's kind of like, I feel like, why do people want to not be in their body? Why do people want to be the body of a seventh grader? I can't figure that out. In seventh grade, I knew nothing about my life, like, but
Right.
you hear that all the time. Well, this is what I always thought I would look like, or this is
I
what I always.
sometimes wonder what they see in the mirror, some people, because, like, oh my God, that doesn't look good. And they think it looks good. And
But it's
the filters and the everything else. It's like, I know people that I know what they look like, and I'll give them crap because I'm like, can I see what you actually look like?
mhm.
Because of all this stuff. And we live in this selfie world.
It's self-centered.
Yeah.
It's like what it is it's self-centered. And I believe that if anything, Jewish anti-Semitism against
Oh, oh,
self-hatred
I'm glad you
is
brought that up.
is the result of a self-centered young generation who have not experienced the nachas, or they're not, they're coming from a very, they're easy. When you're living neck up, you can be manipulated.
Yeah.
When you're in your gut, I tried to explain this to someone yesterday. I said, when you know what you believe, nobody can blow you over. Your roots are
No,
deep. You don't care.
no doubt. And I
Yeah.
think my generation, your generation, we created these monsters, I'll put it this way, is
Yeah.
because our generation, like, we had to figure things out. We were on our own. We had to deal with all the tumult. We had to deal with everything. And then we had kids and decided we didn't want our kids to go through what we had to go through. So we spoiled the crap out of them, made them entitled, shielded them from everything. And now they can't handle anything. And, you know, you bring up the Jew thing. That's what bothers me most of all is Jewish anti-Semitism. It's like,
Mhm.
how are you against your own people? What is wrong with you? That is one that really gets me. And I'll tell you what, too. My youngest daughter, she had a very uh, beneficial learning experience.
Mhm.
And I thank October 7th for that. If I'm going to pick a positive out of October 7th, this is going to be it. Because before October 7th, my youngest daughter, she was very much a woke person. And
Mhm.
all her friends were woke people. And basically, she went on birthright. I sent her on birthright to Israel. And there's another thing. I think every Jew should go to Israel because otherwise they have this thing in their head. And you mentioned something earlier that's another pet peeve of mine. People, Israel did not start in 1948. This narrative that everybody's painting that Israel's only been around since 1948 kind of blows my mind, but okay. But she went to Israel. She had a great time, met great people, you know, did all the experiences, came back, and October 7th happened. It was the summer before October 7th that she did Birthright.
Mhm.
And some people she met there ended up hostages. Her kibbutz was taken out, that she was at. Other people, probably died, like all this stuff that went on. And all she woke up from being
Mhm.
woke when
Mhm.
that happened, because she was going to school, and still is, up in the Panhandle.
Yeah.
And so basically she came back and went to school and was afraid to go to school because they were having violent protests. And part of the people that were the hate against her were her friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of them. All of them.
Well,
Like, she changed all her friends. She got involved with the Chabad at
mhm.
her school, who was like right there. And then, she felt some safety there. And she really found her Jewish, it's not, I don't call it faith, I call it identity.
Yeah.
Like, I think she didn't have, we all grew up with that identity. And I think
Right.
kids today are not being given that identity, so they don't relate as much, or kids
Well, and that
after our
right.
generation.
The more and the more dangerous part is there's a history erasing going on. And I
Mm,
literally, when my son who's out in Boulder, he became part of the quote unquote woke people, which I always say woke is warm, open, kind to everyone. Like, stop it already. Just stop. Just stop it. You want to be woke, but you don't want to be on, like, you don't want to be like on an all-nighter, like
right?
on Nodos, like, chill out. But for me, it's the rewriting of history. So what I did, because see, I was in Israel in the 80s, and I was I was part of the post Peace Prize Arafat contingent. 19, I believe it was 1992 when President Bill Clinton did that. But there was an erasing of the Arafat history.
Oh yeah.
And so what I did is I just put together a history for my children, because you can't find it online. I went to Israel. I also put a history of all the food and resources that have been going into the West Bank every single day, and Gaza every single day, without stopping, except for the hour that the missiles are in the air. That is when it stops. I like got all the information from the census and everything, and I sent it to my kids, and I said, listen, if you still feel the same way after you read this, I said, but the thing that's mostly erased by all of this, that is fueled by the British media, is that Israel, when it was created in 1948, was the result of a horrifying experience where most people in Europe turned a blind eye, where trains of our people were sent into camps where literally the United States and Britain bombed around the trains. Like, these things really happen. And I would say my best friend lives in Tel Aviv now. If you asked her grandparents if that's where they wanted to end up, I can tell you they might say no. Because most people that ended up in that area were turned away from other places. Yes, there were the hippies who came from Russia to settle Palestine, and a lot of that feeling that was happening. But so many of the people who ended up there, it's not like they went, "Hey, I want to go to Israel." Like, this is an amazing place that has emerged. If you go there, everybody lives there. It's not
Right.
just a Jewish.
It's one of the most diverse
It's the most
liberal
amazing,
places on the
right,
planet.
on the planet. Well, it's, unfortunately, some of that is shifting a little bit,
Well,
but
that's the politicians.
yeah, it's crazy. It's the same. It's same. But I just have to say that I'm a big passionate about reality. Like, I want my kids to know reality, because until we look at reality, we can't change it. We don't have to be ashamed of our American history. We have to just tell it and then change it.
And learn from it.
Yes.
Listen, I love what you said about Yasser Arafat, because it's like, does nobody know that Yasser Arafat was a terrorist? Like,
But for real,
hello?
like, you
For
couldn't go
yeah.
out. You couldn't, like, cafes were bombs, buses, the whole thing, all the entire, but it was a timeline that was rewritten,
Well, it's
and
interesting
it
too.
also erased.
Interesting that you brought up the UK because the most famous conspiracy theorist who also came up with the idea that the Holocaust never happened, he also came up with the idea that the Jews paid Hitler to do that, which that people even believe that's funny as shit on earth. But uh, but David Icke, like he's a whack job, and he's out of the UK, and he's a total whack job. And this is who
How
we'll
about the
listen
fact
to.
that this is a kingdom that basically had the first concentration camps in India, and you're talking about the British Empire that basically is now reduced to an island, and they are really the ones pushing the Palestinian agenda. And I
Oh yeah,
believe,
I can
and
tell you
they
that
are
firsthand. Because
pushing it, and they're the ones that created it as a gift for ignoring what was happening. Like, what's the gift? This is a gift. I'm
yeah,
like,
right.
but
I can tell you firsthand. I'll be there in a couple weeks. I do coverage at music festivals over there in the UK, and since October
I'm an
7th,
Anglophile, so I love England. But come on now, you have a king. Back off, back
yeah.
off.
So after October 7th, sometimes it's scary to go to these festivals. I was at one where the whole crowd, by the band encouraging them, was singing and chanting "Death to the IDF," and stuff like seriously, should you know, why do most of these people chanting this stuff or protesting this stuff, they're not like the hippies. The hippies, at least, they were educated and knew what they were fighting for. These people, you ask them where Palestine is, they don't even know. They don't even know. They don't know who anybody is. It's just a trendy thing to jump on. But the problem is, it's so dangerous because they're going to jump on every trendy thing and not even know what they're trying to accomplish. And all they're doing is accomplishing more hate, not more love.
Right. And they're not, it's where we can help, when we talk about this show, is that there's hope. I do believe that there's hope, right? Hatikva, but I believe that there's hope because whenever you have a heart open, it's like when you have one conversation with somebody, and you open their heart to the truth, or you open their heart that we're just human beings, and we have to be in this together. We have so many things to deal with that we have to stand against division, because division is a distraction that keeps us from ignoring the fact that we have some things to work on.
Yeah.
And one of those is that we have to be able to stand each other. Because the one thing I'll tell you about the future involves cooperation, community, helping people. And I'm going to give a shout out to where I live, because I live in Will County, Illinois. And I have to tell you, I run a treatment center, a nonprofit treatment center called Stepping Stones for Addiction and Substance Use. And my county is so generous. I have the most amazing board of directors. I have witnessed the social services in our area, which, Julia is the South, like you said, the South. But I think that the future is partnerships. The future is joining together. Faith and religion has to make way for community. It
I,
has to make way for, and there will always be people who want the hereafter. I can't fight that. I can't fight the fact that you want to have the guarantee that you'll get in somewhere when this is over. I personally believe I'll just be right back as, like, I don't know, something else. But like, I just think there's so much hope in community, and whatever we can do, whatever you can do, Dean, whatever I can do through the way we communicate and say, it's just not about that. It's about the fact that the Torah teaches us that you are the world.
mhm.
You are the world. Every single person is the world. And so we have to come together in Tikkun Olam, not just Jews, not just Christians, not just, I don't know, Scientologists, not just anybody, and just all of us, and go,
No doubt.
oh, it's just, but I sort of, I think it can be easy to get bogged down for in a lot of that. But that's why I
Everybody
love.
wants to be part of a club too, and
Mhm.
that's how they create the division because
Mhm.
they know humans like that. But you know what? If we all banded together and to start to learn from each other, understand each other, we would be way more powerful than the powers that be that are trying to divide us.
And to realize how absolutely amazing it is. Like when you understand, I'm going to get like a little like, I don't know, but when you understand how amazing it is, the amount of Torahs that survive the Shoah. And when you go into a show, like, listen, I've had enough of show, I'll be honest, but because of, I'm a woman and I'm very feminine. So there you go. But when you go into a show and you see, I have a Holocaust scroll, but when you understand like the 600,000 letters that are written on there, and you understand, I don't know if that's the right number, but you just the fact that the stories in there are the same stories that are told in North America around the fire. They're the same creation stories that are told in the Aborigines under the starry sky. They're the same exact, oh, I'm getting excited, stories. The same exact stories.
Well, there's this
It's
religion.
amazing.
There's this religion, I forget what it's called, but they believe that we all came from clay, and it's the same story, just clay is in there instead.
It's
It's
just,
like,
but it's that same story of humanity and the emotions and the struggles and the, and instead of looking for the differences, we just have to look for the similarities. I'm a little disheartened myself after being here and being sort of censured, and I don't understand Jews against immigration. I don't understand a
yeah,
lot of
that's a
things. I
little
don't.
weird, right?
It's a little weird. It's a little
Like
really
like you're
weird.
against your own ancestry then is that's my whole point. Like it just makes no sense to me. Like I could understand a Gentile being anti-Semitic way more than a Jew being anti-Semitic. And like we have to be one of the only cultures that experiences that because like you don't really see like your husband. I'm
Mhm,
sure most Puerto Ricans are not against Puerto Ricans
mhm.
and siding with the people that are against them and being racist against them. That's the point that blows my mind, that you side with terrorists, that you side with people that have been trying to destroy our people since the beginning of time and think we're the bad ones
Well, I
when you
don't
are
think.
one.
Yeah, and I don't. I think that maybe if I was in Florida, I'm going to be honest. Like, I think maybe it's my, my higher power working in my life, because maybe if I was in Florida, I might have dipped a little into that wokeness. And being here and being on some panels right after the war, or right after the attack, I call it October 7th,
Yeah,
and being on panels with some Egyptian leaders and some um, leaders in the area from different countries, and the inability to renounce what Hamas did. And because I'm in contact with Israel a lot, and I had seen, my Galit showed me the videos, so I was one of the Americans that had the privilege of knowing what really happened that day, because they wouldn't let them show the videos. But
hmm,
um, I felt that old fear. Like, this isn't a normal kind of, it's not just like you get to like ride on the bus, but sit in the back. And
yeah, no, it's scary.
no, we just want you to die. Like, it's a deep like violence that I got on. I stopped doing panels because I really, I wasn't scared. I was just questioning, what am I doing? What is this doing? What, providing a place for someone to, what is this about? It felt like there was a little bit of an agenda to create that woke mindset. And
Of
listen,
course.
here's the thing. If you, when, if you are Islamic, Muslim, and you're in the United States, you are terrified. And I can identify with that, because that's a subtext of when you grow up as a Jewish person that doesn't live in like I don't know, Brooklyn or New Jersey or like,
Exactly.
I don't know, LA. When you grow up
What's
anywhere
a
else,
Jew?
right?
I've heard that in my life many times. What's a Jew? I
But when
never
you
met one of you.
but when you grow up, and this is to my Muslim brothers and sisters, and I mean this from my heart. Like, I know you're scared, and I know that that fear can morph into diversion, deflection, whatever you can do to keep the attention off because you're scared, you
Yeah.
know? And we're here to stand with you. I'm here to stand with you against all tyranny, against all hate, against all deportation, and I get a little political because that's my hot button. I mean, my oldest daughter's Haitian, and my husband's obviously Puerto Rican, but they're American. But but I mean, coming from Miami, like I have America is the people who come here. That is what makes us
Exactly.
amazing.
Oh my
So,
God. It's like, seriously, that the country was formed based
mhm,
on immigration, and it's
mhm,
always been about immigration and the diversity of its people,
mhm,
and we all can live together in
mhm.
harmony and stop listening to the people trying to divide us and talk to each other instead.
Right, right. And I mean, I think that it's going to be a bumpy ride. This is still bumpy, but we come out and we be a positive representative. I love what you shared about like being, we study the Torah. I always say you may be the only Torah someone meets. You have to be it. You're the living Torah. You
Mm,
have to love your neighbor as yourself. You have to give a little corner of your field to the person who might show up and be hungry. You have to do all of those things in how you live your life. And and that is just, a challenge. It's a challenge in a very selfish, self-centered. I mean, it's a weird world right now. I mean,
no doubt.
I'll be on YouTube and I'll be watching a video. I mean, and they get you with your hot button. You may have your own hot buttons. My hot button is getting older, skin, skincare, supplements. You'll be just watching a video. You watch a commercial, you hit that cart button, on your phone. Like, what the hell just happened? I didn't even know I was going to buy it. Like,
Right.
there's like a weird amount of access that's happening to our nervous systems, and I think
I
we'll
think we
under.
have too much information too, because like you said earlier, okay, it's not that this is a new thing, and I've said this before. It's that we just are getting bombarded with the information about it. When I was a kid, I knew about Yasser Arafat and I knew about the problems and all that, but not to the extent of now, where it's in your face all the freaking time, and you don't even know what to believe anyway, because anybody can be a journalist nowadays. There's no integrity in journalism. It's whoever has a voice. I have somebody on X that every time they post something, they put breaking news. Dude, and I've said to him, dude, you're not a journalist. You don't even work for a thing. It's not breaking news. You're just spouting your mouth off.
Well, how about the fact that if you say that it's getting worse, then you negate the fact that there were KKK meetings in the White House in the 20s?
Right?
Like, stop it. Like, what is going on? Like, it's just, these are things that have existed, and by saying it's worse, then you never really, it's like it's a diversion. It's like when somebody was telling me about how you can tell something is written in AI. It's very much like AI what's going on, because like AI, when it will write a script, will say in Boston, not in Chicago, but in Boston. Like, AI always gives a negative to enforce a positive. And so
Yeah.
I think that there's like, oh, it wasn't always that bad. When? In like 1987, when we were all high on coke? Like, when was it not that bad? Like, it's very, there's something there, Dean. I mean, we'll have to explore it
Oh
again
man,
because there's
we have,
something there.
and we are running out of time, but we
Yes.
definitely have to explore it again because I like that whole concept there, and that's definitely the Rabbi Jenny experience I was looking for. Uh,
Aw, thanks.
so now, before we go, because I'm going to probably run a little late because it's just good stuff. But why don't you tell everybody how they can reach out to you and all about, you know, give your elevator speech of all
Oh,
that you do
sure.
to help people and why
Sure.
they should reach out to you.
Well, I mean, you can reach out to me through my website, thehealingrabbi.com, and it'd be thehealingrabbi@gmail. I don't think that's weird to put that out there. I do trauma work. I do, if you're struggling with spiritual, I do a lot of work with spiritual trauma. And I only see a couple clients, but I'm also teaching, which is really exciting. I'm starting live teaching of the medicine wheel. So if you felt called to be a shamanic practitioner, we're going to be starting our first group. And I'm in the Ozarks, House Springs, Missouri now. Can you imagine how the hell did I get here, Dean? And we're going to start in the South in October. If you're interested, please reach out. And of course, if you're ever struggling with substance use issues, which is my primary passion, we're here. We're Stepping Stones. We're a fully nonprofit. We are in Illinois. We take Medicaid, and we have in our mission and purpose that we do not let somebody's ability to pay keep you out of treatment. And we're an amazing program. So if you ever do a show on substance use, I'd love to talk to you about that too. So.
We'll definitely have to do one about that. And there's definite specific reasons I would want to, because I've been surrounded by addicts my whole life. They're like my crowd, and I'm not one of them. I'm the designated no person. I'm like, no so-and-so, no so-and-so.
Right.
But, I think people need the kind of help that you're giving. I just, real quick before the end of the show, I'll get vulnerable. You probably don't even know this because I don't think we talked about it, but a couple of years ago, my grandson, he passed away from addiction, from at 15, heroin.
Yeah.
At
That's
15.
Well, you know what? I think you and I have been talking about, what are we going to do together? What are we going to create together? I think that this is the beginning of something. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it on June 3rd. But it is my passion. I'm so sorry about your grandson. I've lost so many young, bright, beautiful, wonderful young people. And really trying to get in their body. They were trying to experience life. They were trying to feel something. And I truly believe that in my heart. And so I remain really in their honor, passionate about trying to give the kind of treatment that will help them. And it's not always easy in today's Western medicine world,
No, it's not. And I'm a big believer in what you do. And I thank you for being here. We'll have to do some more for sure.
Absolutely.
And thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipeman right here on W4CY Radio.
Thank you, Dean.
And I ran out of time to say what I was going to say, so I'm going to do it really, really quick.
Okay.
And if you go to Pipeman Radio on all socials, we are giving away festival tickets to Louder Than Life and Aftershock coming up in the fall. And I just did coverage at Death Angel Violence Insight show here in Fort Lauderdale at one of my favorite venues at the Culture Room. I also did coverage at Jelly Roll right here down the street at the Amphitheater in West Palm Beach, who is a friend of mine. I interviewed him long before he even got as big as he did. And I'm leaving on the Pipeman Radio tour tomorrow, heading to Milwaukee, close to you.
Yeah, you got to come visit. Let's go to breakfast. Call me.
You come to me. Are you close to Milwaukee? Are you
no,
going to be
2 hours?
Oh,
2 hours.
Yeah, so
it's
that'd
not
be kind
basketball
of
season,
difficult.
so I'll be there.
So I'm going to be doing the Milwaukee Metal Festival, which is really killer, and then I leave from there, go to the UK to cover Download Festival, and keep checking out my socials for the rest of the Pipeman Radio tour, and we will be back again soon. Thanks a lot,
Dean.
Rabbi Jenny, for the experience. It's surely been an adventure. Juan, roll it.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.